Good evening, everyone. I'll call to order this committee of the whole meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores and welcome all members of the committee and everyone who's watching us on the live stream this evening. We're glad you're with us. The second item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. I'll ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare at this time. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments. We have no open forum requests. So that brings us on to item 5, delegations. And we do have one delegation this evening from Mandy Lamb and Andy McKee, the big brothers and big sisters of Grey Bruce. And they're here to give us a program update. So welcome, Mandy and Andy.
Okay, well, thanks, Mayor Charbonneau. So are you, do you want us to go ahead now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so good evening and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you folks today. My name, of course, is Andy McKee, and I've been the president of Big Brothers Big Sisters here in it's now Grey Bruce. It was formerly Big Brothers Big Sisters of Owen Sound, but we've recently expanded our service area. So we are now providing support to a couple of children in your community, and we have some in-school mentoring, which is on hold right now, obviously because of COVID. So the purpose of our deputation today is to boost our awareness of our agency and its programs, and to demonstrate the importance of our programs to strengthen communities through serving children, youth, and their families, which has some very good long-term benefits. And also, we would like to share the various ways that communities can support us. So now I'd like to introduce Mandy Lamb, who has a presentation, and she's our full-time mentorship coordinator, and her PowerPoint will outline who we are and what we do. So thanks again, and you're on, Mandy.
All right. Hey, everybody. So yeah, I'm just going to share. I think you guys all received the PowerPoint ahead of time. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. In theory, it'll work. Even, technology doesn't always love me, but I'm going to try. And then we'll just go through it. Okay. There we go. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So who we are basically is we're a member of the national organization, which was established in 1903, but we started in Owen Sound in 1960. And we believe that every child should have someone standing with them. So I don't want to read slides word for word, especially because you guys got them ahead of time. But this is just sort of an idea of who we are. And this picture up in the left corner here, those are our superheroes that have been with us for over 20 years. All 4 of them have been. So we like to keep them around because they know all the history. Our programs that we have. So we have one-to-one programs, which is probably the one that you've all heard of. So where we have a big and a little that meet in the community for at least an hour a week, ideally, and they just hang out. They, do crafts, they do baking. This is Matt and Caleb. They've been matched for 3 years. And they were making strawberry rhubarb crisp that day. And it was delicious because they shared it with me. So that I like to have our local bigs and littles in my slideshow so that you know the local faces. Couples match is essentially the same thing, except for Matt's partner would be with him and then the 3 of them would hang out. The in-school mentoring, like Andy mentioned, we match one-to-one in the school. And the big comes to school property and they hang out with their little for an hour a week during school hours. And they do non-academic, for the most part, activities. And Big Bunch, when COVID is not a thing, we try to plan a monthly outing or event that we can do with all of our bigs and littles that are matched and unmatched. So it gives our unmatched youth a chance to hang out as well and experience the program. Regardless of which program you're in, we're always aiming for the same thing, that we have a trusting relationship between the big and little. They empower each other, they learn from each other. The littles are encouraged to develop into adults and members of the community, and hopefully their big can be part of that and part of that journey with them. And we always want that to be the goal. The littles are between 6 and 16, so quite a range. And the bigs are 18 and older, unless it's the in-school program, then they can be 17. We serve most of Grey and Bruce counties. These are our local numbers all across. I did pull the Saugeen Shore specific numbers. So for Big Brothers, we have one Big Brother that's currently in intake. So he's done his interview, he's doing his training this week. Big Sisters, we have 2 that are in intake and 2 that are matched. Little Brothers, we have 2 in intake and 2 waiting. So that means we have 4 little brothers that need a big brother in Saugeen Shores. And then we have 2 little sisters that are matched. So we haven't been in Saugeen Shores until obviously we expanded. So it gives us a chance to meet you guys so you know who we are and how to reach out to us. That's why we're here today. So you know that we're here. On the left here, actually, that's Kelsey and Leona. And Leona is from Saugeen Shores. So she's one of our matched little sisters she lives just around the Southampton area. And then up here we have bigs and littles that were at the bowling event. And then Emily and her little sister were painting. This was all before COVID, because now it looks a lot different. We all look like this screen face shots for our meetings. So yeah, when we hang out, we basically, the little is the center, and then they have all the program, their parent or guardian, and they have their big to sort of support them and build them up. My job, once I match people, is to support them. So I get text messages. This is what we did today. What can we do now that COVID's here? So lots of brainstorming with the bigs and littles, what activities they can do that are safe and healthy for them, because we want to make sure that that's part of it. And the parent or guardian is always an active part of the match as well, because we always want to make sure that there's that communication piece. And then the mentoring effect, that is a study that the national office had done. So it just gives us those number pieces that tell us that mentoring is important and it does help. So mentoring helps kids graduate, essentially. 52% of the students were less likely to skip school. They were more likely to be confident, more likely to believe that school is fun. They were, boys and girls, less likely to bully, fight, lose their temper, binge drink, use drugs, lying, cheating, things like that. They were all lowered. And my favorite statistics are these ones. Our littles that have mentors in their life or bigs are 92% more confident, and 96% of them said, so self-reported, that they felt happy. They earned more money over their life span, so 13% higher earnings, and 47% held senior leadership. So again, that confidence boosting and self-esteem, someone in your corner cheering you on, is always going to help us feel more confident. And we know that mentoring helps with that. So you can ignite potential and be the spark in a youth's life. That's the end of my official presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions if you have any.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Mandy, and thank you, Andy. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? Well, I'll just say we really appreciate you guys coming in this evening and reminding us that you're here and that you're providing this service in the town of Saugeen Shores. Big Brothers and Big Sisters is a great organization that's been around for several decades, as you've pointed out, and we're just very pleased that you're here. And I hope that by being here, you pick up a little attention and that you get some big brothers or big sisters for those folks in our community who are looking for them. So
wonderful.
Well, thanks very much, and have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So that moves us then on to, we have no public meetings. That moves us on then to report of municipal officers and committees and general government report, staff report on the corporate communications strategy, and we'll turn it over to the Director of Strategic Initiatives.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The corporate communication strategy is a refresh and a rebuild from our 2017 to 2020 strategy. Over the past 3 years, the team has confidently built corporate communication process. We've implemented new tactics, and we're continuously evaluating our efforts. This strategy was developed by staff, and our team is grateful for the comments and feedback that were gathered from our elected officials, our peers, our town staff, and the local media. The data collection, in addition to evaluation efforts of our previous tactics, help us created our path forward for the next 3 years. The strategy is very low cost, and the activities will be funded by the communications operating budget line. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sure, thank you. We have a recommendation. I'll read it, then we can take questions or comments. It's recommended that council approve the corporate communication strategy 2021 through 2023. Questions or comments from members of the committee? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Jessica, just through you, Mr. Mayor, to Jessica, I just wanted to thank you for making some very positive changes from the first draft. I think there are some good comments you received from council last time around, and I think it's this is something that's very much required for our community to improve upon our communications with local groups, organizations, individuals, or taxpayers. And I guess the proof will be in the pudding, so to speak. It's one thing to have the communication strategy, but we have to now implement, lay it out, and bring to action. So and I'm very confident that's going to happen. And I think that's all the community is looking for. I think in a lot of cases is just be open and transparent with us and create dialogue, and I think this does that, Jessica. And so you've done a really good job. And I see a report later on the agenda from our CIO that outlines some of the key strategic initiatives over the and that there's going to be a quarterly report come out. We'll speak to that a little bit later, but I think a lot of it's just informing the members of the public where they can find that information. And sometimes people either don't know, or they choose maybe not to find out it, but it's their responsibility to go to try and find this information. But I think we make it a lot easier too by doing the promotion that you're talking about, Jessica. And that $8,000 in your, I forget what page it's on now, but you lay out some of the strategies on pages 14 and 15, and I added the total up there today, and like it's $8,100, and I think that's $8,100 well spent to get the message out to people about how we're going to communicate with them, get the message out. Is that already built into your budget, Jessica? That $8,100, is it part of your? That's not an additional budget request?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. That's built within, and the strategy over the 3 years. So likely we'll see that $8,100 split up over a few years to come out of our operating. Perfect.
Well, again, I just want to thank you for the good work, and I think the public, this is something they've been waiting for, and let's it's the way we implement now. So thanks for your good effort.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Schreider.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Jessica, another great job here. I think what I'm looking forward to with this as well is that this will be a tool for staff. And we just went through capital and operating budget last month, and throughout some of the project descriptions, we saw, community consultation if required. And the question comes out saying, is it required, and how are we going to do that? So I think with your previous plan and with this one here, I think that will help guide staff into some of that communication that we need within the residents for some projects, but also the internal communication that we'll be having amongst staff as well. So great job.
You further comments from members? Well, thanks very much, Jessica. I think our first crack at this was the 2017 through 2020 document, and I think over that period we've really upped our game on communications. And since you took on your position, and we developed a communications team and got that strategy, and now this new plan is an opportunity to up it even further, and we can always improve, as my colleagues have pointed out. And I think this puts us on a good path to doing that. So thanks very much for your report and recommendation. And with that, we do have a recommendation, so I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. So that moves us then on to 7.3, infrastructure and development reports. There's 4 reports there, and the first one is a staff report road widening 114 Shipley Avenue, and the Director of Infrastructure and Development.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. This report is in support of a landowner that came in for a minor variance application to merge the two properties on title. And in order to do that, the property boundary needs to change. Along with that planning application, the town is also able to ask for a road widening. And by doing the road widening, it spoils the definition of that lot, and therefore the merge can happen. So it's one way to make the merge happen. The road widening is 13 feet, and the intention is to have that land for future servicing, potential for a sanitary sewer down that street, or the Great Lakes Trail and bike lanes as well. So we would like to have the 13 feet to match the other road widenings that are on Shipley Avenue up or I guess to the north.
Okay, thank you. There's a recommendation. I'll read it, then we can take questions. It's recommended that council accept the transfer of land for a road widening along 114 Shipley Avenue. Questions or comments from members? Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Amanda. Amanda, the road widening, and I think it's a great idea, you know, for future storm sewer and you know, sanitary, whatever we need to put in, trail widening. Do we have the lands on other parcels of property now, or is this just the start? Is this a missing link? Is it happening on other pieces of property, or is it something that we're just doing now and then hoping later that the other properties will also come online where we'll assume the ownership? Is it so? How many pieces are missing along Shipley, I guess is my question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the opportunity presented itself on this property because they're in for a planning application. So now is the time to take it across as frontage. There are a couple other where that has already happened, but there definitely are some where that has not occurred yet. I don't know the percentage or length of missing pieces, but now is the time to get it here.
Well, I agree 100%. And but eventually, along Shipley, the goal is right. You know, to fill in those missing pieces, and eventually we'll have 13 feet the whole distance. That's the long-term plan, I guess, right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the long-term plan will be to have a 20-meter right-of-way. So it may be 13 for the majority of them, but it may be less on some.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further comments from members? Just for perfect clarity on this, Amanda, there is no plan to widen Shipley Avenue. This is as a result of a planning application, but it you know, when you read the recommendation, land for road widening, some may read that and think that our intention is to widen Shipley Avenue. That's not the intent, correct?
Through you, and correct, no, that's not the intention. Like I said, it's just the time to get the land to avoid the expropriation if needed in the future to match up to a standard right of way.
Yes, excellent, thank you. All right, so we've had the recommendation and no further questions, and I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Okay. Then the second report is a staff report on assumption of services and the director.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. This is a standard process to complete a draft plan of subdivision and make the roads and infrastructure finally owned and maintained by the municipality. These 5 developments have now reached the points where this can be done, and so we are looking to move forward with the bylaw and assume responsibility for all that infrastructure.
Thank you. There's a recommendation that council pass a bylaw to assume all services for subdivisions Summerside Phase 2, stages 1, 2, and 3, Summerside Phase 5, Lakeside Woods, and Woodlands Phase 1B. Questions or comments to the recommendation? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. All right, that moves us on to the third report, which is a staff report on all-way stop sign request policy and the director.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. As part of the Transportation Master Plan, the recommendation for stop sign analysis was that we follow the Ontario Traffic Manual for regulatory signs. And this is what we have done for intersections that we had the information on, as I committed to doing when we presented the Transportation Master Plan. So as you can see in the report, there's many considerations as to when you put a 4-way stop or a 3-way stop in. We look at traffic volume and collision history. So we have those reports from the police for the last 5 years and reviewed those to determine if there was 3 collisions per year in a 3-year period. Plus we looked at the volumes of cross traffic with that 350 cars within a peak hour. The results are in the table that shows that Joseph and Bruce were close, even though they didn't meet it. And that puts more emphasis to me on the need for looking at traffic calming in that area. So we'll continue with that as committed to for 2021. Huron and High is currently a 3-way stop, but a 4-way traffic movement. And there, the analysis recommends that we change it to a 2-way stop. So we would remove the westbound stop. We're going to re-look at that before it comes back to bylaw just for sightlines, because that's one piece that I want to check again. But so that change may happen before it comes back to the bylaw. And then the other two that did meet a warrant were Bruce Street and Green Street, and then Bruce Street and Waterloo Street. So when the traffic bylaw is updated this spring, those two will come forward as 4-way stops.
Okay, thank you. There's a recommendation. I'll read it. We can take questions. It's recommended that council approve the all-way stop sign request policy as presented. Questions or comments from members of the committee? Councilor Schreider.
Thank you, and through you, thank you, Amanda, for this. Just a question, and I understand the matrix, but is there an actual score? So when you look at Joseph and Bruce, which has been one that I think we've all received comments and emails on, and we do have concern about that area. It says no, but close. Is there a percentage? Is there a point system? How close was that intersection?
Sure, thank you. And through you, you need 350 on the highest hour, and that intersection recorded 230.
Okay. And the collision comparison, sorry, Mr. Mayor, through you again, and the collision study with the police as well?
I don't know that offhand. I can get back to you on how many collisions were at that intersection in the last 5 years. These were intersections that Paradigm had analyzed previously. So I did get the volume numbers from them, but not the collision.
I would be interested in maybe the rest of council too, because there are quite a few residents that live along there. I'd love to know kind of the scoring or the matrix of how close it was. And then also as a follow-up is I see that the action would be review for traffic calming measures. Do you have a target date of when we would be able to tell the residents along there that we're looking into this and that they might see some action down there?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we want to have it in place, the recommendation in place before budget. So we'll start looking at setting up the subcommittee of concerned citizens or committee, I would think March. So we'll need to start working at that with the striking committee and with Linda to get that moving through February so that the committee can meet March, April, May and bring something back with recommendations before August.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Grace and then Councilor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you, and thank you, Amanda. I do have a question, another question about Huron and High. If I'm reading it correctly, the collision threshold is 3 in that period of time. Is that right?
It's 3 per year in a 3-year period. So
Okay.
It would be 9 accidents in a rotating 3-year period.
Okay, because I do know of at least one collision at the Huron High intersection, but so when residents say, well, I know of the collision there, just one doesn't do it. It's 9 over 3 years.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, 2 questions. First, with regards to the table there, I'm reading here that we're going to be installing a 4-way stop at Bruce and Green. So people are used to Green, and I think Green is designated as a what is former Councillor Minaj called a collector, not a collector, but a thoroughfare, I guess. It's a one shot down to the beach, and people are used to that. There's no stop signs on that east-west road. That's going to cause quite a paradigm shift for a lot of people to get used to having a stop sign in the middle of Green. So by us voting in favor of this today, is this the first step along approving that change without any further chance to analyze whether or not the rationale is sound on that?
For you, Mr. Mayor, you've been asked to approve the policy, which is how we do the analysis of the stop sign warrants, not this table in particular. This is just answering the question from the Transportation Master Plan and showing what the results of following this policy are for those questions. So before July 1st, my plan is to have the traffic bylaw updated, which will have all of the recommendations for stop signs, speed limit changes, and a few of the other recommendations that came out of the Transportation Master Plan brought forward for your approval.
Okay, and that's good. That's the way that I had read it before, is we weren't approving these changes in the table. And my next question, I think you've already answered it as well, but we will be seeing a similar set of criteria that arose from the Transportation Master Plan as it relates to speed changes and other traffic criteria that were set out in the master plan. Is that correct?
That's correct. There will be a speed limit request policy. There's also a roundabout analysis policy and the traffic calming policy.
Okay, I look forward to those.
And ultimately, just to be clear, like so what we're doing here is giving direction to the administration on how they will analyze these requests. But ultimately, all of these requests come back to council, and council decides whether they get implemented or not. I think it behooves us to try to follow our policies because that's part of transparency. But they are ultimately council's decisions to decide whether or not to move forward with these things or not. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Mayor, and just to Amanda, a couple questions. Amanda, the traffic counts, when you talked about you require, I think you said 350 in a report or something like 350, 400 per day or per hour. I can't remember what it was now, but and Joseph and Bruce was around 250. What time of the year were those warrants measured? What month? What day of the week?
These ones were done in June, and I believe they were a Thursday. I'm not 100% sure, but we looked at trying to do it where we knew that we had a higher peak than normal, but not at the summer peak. So it was that modest peak. Yeah. Sure.
And just to Councilor Matt brought it up, and there's a question I had too around the warrants and with particularly County Road 40, but I know concession 4 speed limit from 80 to 60. I'm at least hoping, but is it the same set of warrants? Is it the same table, these actions with the collisions and amount of traffic, and is it the same formula that's used for speed limit area than it is for stop sign area? Is a totally different formula that's used?
It's totally different. So there are different pieces that we look into. Both of them involve annual average traffic or daily traffic, but speed limits will also look at sight lines, crossings, driveways, number of street poles, curbs, vertical curbs, different streets, all those things where those aren't taken into account for the stop signs.
And my last question, Mr. Mayor, where does this come from again, Amanda? Is this who set this up again? Where does this this criteria come from?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's from the Ministry of Transportation. It's called the Ontario Traffic Manuals.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further comments or questions from members? I just think, Amanda, that this report, I get a lot of requests and calls about stop signs and speed limits a lot. And this is one here that really lays out clearly, this report, how we look at that. And I really think we should put this, maybe we give it to our communications people and put what's in this report together somewhere and put it on our website so that we can refer folks to say, if they call and say, I'd like a stop sign at this intersection, we can say, go here and you can see the criteria that we've approved and that we'll use to make that decision. And folks then can see that it's not just a random decision or based on the time of day or the time of year or whatever. We have some specific criteria that everyone can see, that they can see and understand the situations where we will not use them and where we will use them and why we'll do that. Lots of people talk about, who I hear from say, we need more stop signs to control speed. And this is a clear indication that, stop signs should not be used to control speed, and there's an explanation for that. So I really think that this would be something we shouldn't just leave it in a report that gets lost in an agenda somewhere. It should get published somewhere and posted on our website so that folks can see it and understand what our approach is. So I don't know if that's possible, Amanda, but that's something that I would like to see. Councillor Smith?
Perhaps Ross could tackle this as he has done so eloquently with other items that need explaining in our community. I'm also curious if you could, through you, Mr. Mayor, help address for the public if the report a concern portal would be an appropriate place for folks to put these requests after having read the report.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. That we do get a lot of requests through the report of concern to me for stop signs. That's where we see the majority of them. Other people do call Public Works at the extension 130 and ask for that intersection to be looked at.
So do you think, Amanda, that this is something we could put together and post somewhere, sort of a condensed form or an easily digestible form?
Thank you for the question, and absolutely we can do that. Yep.
All right, thank you. Councillor Schreider.
Sorry about that, and through you, just one follow-up question. The counts that we do and the studies that we do, Amanda, do we own that equipment, or we hire a company out? You had mentioned a company that began with P. Is that the company that comes in and does those studies for us, or do we actually have the equipment to be able to do them when we want to, and maybe do one intersection a couple of times a year? I think Vice Deputy Mayor raised a good question about the time of year that we do the studies on some of these.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. We have asked for a budget for a new traffic counter. So we have a set right now where one works. So we could measure one direction on every street right now. We've asked for the second set, so then we can do the roads. We also have the ability to borrow one from the Public Works Association through Bruce County. So we do our own, but Paradigm had done this as part of what we paid them to do for information gathering for them to be able to put together the transportation master plan. So we are just double using the same information we already paid them to use or to get.
Thank you. Yep, thank you.
Okay, is there anything further? Seeing nothing, you've heard the recommendation. All in favor? That's carried. Then that moves on to the fourth report, which is a staff report on the Bruce Road 25 Phase 3 cost sharing agreement, and the director.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Bruce Road 25 is in its third of 4 stages, and the county manages this project, but some of the infrastructure becomes ours. So from Bruce Street to the lake is going to be given to the town as a town road when Bruce Road 33 is extended over to the existing Bruce Road 33. So we are paying for a portion of that road work, plus the infrastructure that goes underground, the sewer and water main, will be ours and are as soon as it's constructed. So we have to pay for that. But since they're paying the contractor, we are looking to enter into the cost sharing agreement as we did for the last 2 phases to have a bylaw to pay for our share.
Okay, so there's a recommendation that council pass a bylaw to authorize the cost sharing agreement for Phase 3 of the Bruce Road 25 reconstruction project, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the agreement. Questions or comments from members? Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amanda, thanks for your report. And I see our contributions around 2.6 million. I don't see, unless I'm missing it, I see landscaping, seeding, mulch, $2,000. I don't see any kind of reforestation, replanting program in here. And so am I missing it? What's happening? I see some big, beautiful trees being taken out, but I don't see a lot of replanting. And that's my first question. And maybe I missed it. And secondly, I know it's a little bit off topic here, but the landscaping program for Ridge Street down to the lake, is the landscaping program completed now? I saw a lot of new product, new trees and such put in late fall. And is that 20,000 or 30,000 or whatever the amount was we were spending on landscaping? That's the first. Is that completed? Is that landscaping portion completed from top of the hill to the water?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it's mostly completed. I believe there are still some shrubs to work with Saugeen to finish off, but the tree pieces are all in for that. And there isn't a piece of the landscaping through here. We funded the landscaping of the Bruce Road stuff through the NWMO interest for trees ourselves as a side to the cost sharing and construction work last time.
Okay. It would be nice, in my view anyways, from a landscaping perspective, trees that are being taken out, it'd be nice to see 2 trees put back in for every one that's removed, in my view. But, you know, I think when projects like this for 2.6 million, it would have been nice to see $30,000-$40,000 in there for landscaping. But I understand what you're saying. There will be a report come back for landscaping. And when would we expect to see that report come back from you in terms of what the landscaping profile will look like?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, but that's not what I intended to me or to say. I didn't have an intention for that. I was just saying because of a direction from council, that's what we did for trees on phase 1. There wasn't a proposal to do any landscaping above what's in this contract for this phase.
So I guess my question though, Amanda, is you'll come back to this council. Landscaping won't be forgotten about. There will be new trees and landscape put in with the next phase. And there will be requests come back to this council for whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 for landscaping from Ridge Street to the highway. Will you be back with a request?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if directed so by council, yes.
Well, okay. I just like to plant that seed, Mr. Mayor, that landscaping, in my view, is really important for that section of road. So I just want to plant that seed now and record it in the minutes that there was a request for landscaping for that portion. I think it's really important that we do that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Are there further questions? Councilor Maya.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Amanda, just looking at the map that's included in the report there, and having gone down there a couple of times recently, down County Road 25, and what am I seeing down there is that the foundation for Ridge Street is in, and there's a couple of Jersey barriers at either end. Is that correct?
You, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Okay, so what do you know what the timeline is for getting that done? Is that part of phase 3, opening up Ridge Street?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have a temporary detour route going through Ridge Street for this construction. We had the ability to include it in the contract from 2020 at a fair price. And so we extended those contract prices to get it done so that that detour would be ready for when this construction started and Bruce Road 25 needed to be closed. So it can be opened as soon as the contractor mobilizes. But the future Ridge Street connection will be driven by the draft plan of Blue Water Estates, and when it continues and requires that road connection out to Bruce Road 25. Between the 2 stages, between the detour route and the final road, it will remain a trail that will be open for cyclists and pedestrians to connect through. So there will always be that linkage starting this spring.
So when that roundabout is being constructed and phase 3 is underway, cars will be using Ridge Street because there'll be periods of time when it's completely stopped up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay. And the second thing, what I've noticed back there's a bit of activity going on in what on the map it's marked as future stickle. Is that the developer starting to put in groundwork there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that the topsoil removal is being done on one of the privately owned sites.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there further questions? I think just in support of the Vice Deputy Mayor's comments, I think Amanda, I think you ought to come back with some recommendation on tree planting in that location. There's going to be trees removed there. That's going to be distressing to some property owners along there. We lost trees along that road earlier in the last, well, phase 1, not so much in phase 2, but in phase 1. And it's going to happen again in phase 3, I expect. I know the County of Bruce is going along and speaking to the property owners individually about that, or at least that was what they committed to do when we spoke about it at the county. And so I think we're going to want to have the ability to provide decent sized trees to plant in place of those ones that have been removed. Shouldn't be that many trees really, or that huge an expense. But I would like to see a report come back for council to consider funding that. Is there any objection from anybody to that? I see no objection, so let's do that, okay? Yeah, and I would just also say that I think what you've done, we considered a few meetings ago, but just for the sake of anybody listening, the detour concept that you have put together, and Amanda, in partnership with the county, is going to be good. And folks who live down in that area who may be concerned about a repeat of what we had this year shouldn't be concerned about that. We have that well looked after this time as part of this upcoming construction season, and so there should be good access to the area during this project. And I thank you for your work once again on that. I think that's going to be great relief to many people down there. So with that, you've heard the recommendation, and I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. So then that moves us on to we're through to 7.7, communications and petitions for committee of the whole information. 2 items there. Any questions or comments on either of those? Don't see any. So that moves us on then to reports of department heads. And the first one is an information report on the Ferry Lake Research Project and Restoration Plan. And what do we have? The Director of Community Services. We have the manager. Frank Burrows. Frank, do you have any comments you want to make to this?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to report that we've made a great partnership on some research associated with Ferry Lake. I think, as we know, Ferry Lake's a much-loved park in central Southampton, but it does suffer some ecological challenges and poor water quality and invasive species. We've made some efforts in the past to try to control some of the vegetation, with not very much success. So we've explored other options, and we've developed this partnership with the University of Waterloo and Nuclear Innovation Center to do a very comprehensive study of the lake through graduate students at the Department of Biology, University of Waterloo. And the objective there is to do a very rigorous scientific assessment of the lake to try to come up with a science-based restoration plan for improving the ecological integrity of the lake. And that's primarily targeting the invasives, that weed that many of us see in June that comes up in very dense quantities, and also the common carp that is disturbing those sediments of the lake and really challenging the water quality of the lake. So the outcome of this will be a science-based study to hopefully define a clear solution and clear path forward of how we can improve the quality of Ferry Lake itself.
That's great. Thanks, Frank. Are there questions or comments from members? Councillor Mayette, then we'll get Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Thanks, Frank, for this. I'm getting some deja vu when I first read this, because we went through a similar study back in the days before I was on council, when I was on the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee. And we had the Ministry of Natural Resources come in and do a study of the water, and they made some recommendations. And at the time, the recommendations were rather drastic. What they wanted to do was to essentially drain the lake and sort of, give it a full reboot from ground up. And of course, that never really happened. And I think that it'd be worthwhile maybe talking to Jane and see about pulling up some of that data from back in, I'm going to say 2010, 2011, in that range, because there was data there, and it's worthwhile taking a look, and at least, if for nothing else, give the consultant a chance to review what was already done, just so they're not starting from fresh. And the second thing I wanted to say was just today, I was granted a license from the MNRF for rescuing stranded fish. Many people will recall From time to time, fish come up that creek towards Ferry Lake, and they get stopped up at the little dam there in the spring. The rainbow trout, they get confused and they'll follow any running water they can find, and then when the water drops, they get stranded up there. So a few years ago, we got into a real big program where we rescued a whole bunch of fish and took them back down and put them in the river, Saugeen River, where they belong. And it took us quite a bit of jumping through hoops at the time to get permission from the MNRF to do that. So this year we've been proactive and we've applied for a license, and we were just granted that license today. As a matter of fact, I just signed it. So if anybody listening finds himself in a creek or a ditch and they see rainbow trout stranded, give the Lake Huron Fishing Club a call, and we'll mobilize some resources and try and bring them back to where they belong. And that's not our frying pans necessarily.
All right, thanks, Dave. Councilor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Frank. This is really exciting and good news. A question about the invasive common carp. It says including exclosures. Does that mean removal? And if so, what would happen to them?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So some of the more aggressive active management and restoration techniques do include exclosures and physical removal, even extreme scenarios of lowering the water level and as Councillor Matt suggested, a reboot of the lake. There's some of the more drastic measures which sometimes are effective. And that's exactly one of the reasons we want to use some academic expertise with graduate students and their profs, that they can thoroughly analyze what is the best approach. And usually those very invasive techniques of restoration can be effective, but you want to make sure you've done your homework before you start that type of technique. But there's a good chance it may have to involve something like that if we truly want to restore the lake.
Okay, thank you. Further questions from members? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Frank, back in the day when I was a youngster, Ferry Lake was full of perch and sunfish, very few carp. We used to fish there. But with the advent of everybody using common fertilizers, we know the problem that does and has had on the lake, and the lack of rainwater that now goes into Ferry Lake. It used to be that everything that went down the hospital hill went into Ferry Lake, but that doesn't happen anymore. So we need to find a new source of fresh water coming into Ferry Lake. I like the aeration that we do, but I look forward to what the university students will do, because carp are the end stage of a dying lake, and we have to get that broadleaf out of there. So anything that can be done, we'll be look forward to, and I hope to see that a report very soon.
Great, thank you. Any further comments? Doesn't look like it. So thanks very much for your report, Frank.
Thank you.
The second item is an information report on 2021 major initiatives and the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Council. Tonight's
Mr. Mayor?
report in front.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, Councillor Smith would like us to separate out the report from Protective Services and discuss it separately. Maybe Councillor Smith, would you like to declare your pecuniary interest? I should let you do that.
Yes, thank you. And it is conveniently at the end of the report, so I'm hopeful we can accommodate discussing the first portion, and then I would like to declare a conflict of interest regarding the elements pertaining to the CCV and the report from the Director of Protective Services. My husband, Ryan Smith, is an owner of the Social Athletics of Saugeen Shores.
So what we'll do, members of council, is if you have questions with regard to the CCV, hold them to the end. If there are no questions, it won't matter. But so we'll just, we'll discuss the rest of the report first. So are there any questions with regard to the elements of, no, sorry about that. I'll let the CAO do her report first. The CAO, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm just going to give a high level report, so I won't get into any of the details, but happy to answer any questions. What you have in front of you tonight is an overview and what I think of as a first step on a journey to communicating the major initiatives that are moving forward in Saugeen Shores, both to council and the public. And we're on a path of developing business plans for each of our business units within the town. So what you have in front of you here is sort of twofold. One, within the report, you have a background analysis, including a narrative of some of the work that's happening in the departments. And attached to this report, there are a number of departmental tables that highlight for you the name of the project, a brief background, the budget implications, and the quarter that you can kind of expect to see some of the project advance. And what you also have attached is a reporting schedule. So what our intent is to bring you a quarterly update on each of these initiatives here. So you won't see this change throughout the year. It will follow this template throughout the year. And you'll see that schedule. So we'll be back with Q1 updates in April, Q2 in July, and Q3 in October, and then we'll round out in January after the year closes out. So I just wanted to highlight for you very briefly, because you've all had this ahead of time, that there are 32 major initiatives that the town is moving forward this year in each of the departments. And some of those highlights are from strategic initiatives. We have the advancement of the employment lands on concession 6. From our clerk's department, we have the preparations underway for our election in 2022. A major initiative in our community services department related to the Lamont Sports Park, and it's moving forward. Out of corporate services, we have the advancement of our IT master plan and some great initiatives around process improvement. Out of infrastructure, I'm wondering if I'm biased because I picked these two, but the official plan review and the DC background study, but there's also some great infrastructure projects that are happening there as well. From our police, we have our Project Lifesaver, which is a radio technology program that's advancing this year. And one of the things that I'm very impressed with our police services is they're doing a complete policy review as well, which is pretty progressive, and also an aggressive timetable they have for that. Under protective services, just mentioning the Cedar Crescent Village, but also there's some really great things happening there with the development of a regional fire training center. So as you can see, there's some really strategic, but also progressive initiatives that are happening out of each of the departments. And as I said, this was really an intent to create awareness for council on these, and also for the public. As we lead into 2022, we are looking at advancing this format so we can include a bit more comprehensive business planning around it. And you'll see that unfold through the 2022 budget timetable. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kara. And so do we have questions on any part of the report except the protective services portion? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kara, I just wanted to say thank you for this report. The chart at the end listing the 37 major initiatives is just something that I personally, it's great to see it on paper, and from a communication standpoint, it gives a bird's eye view of what, the amount of things that are happening in this community, and there's a lot happening with this council and staff. And so I think this is a great document. Turning Jessica loose and with our communication strategy, this is precisely the kind of document that needs to get into the hands of members of the public, because it gives them a really good idea, a really good view of what's happening. And there's a lot happening, a lot of really, really good stuff here. And so I really appreciate your good work, and knowing that it's coming quarterly. I think is really a good thing for all of council and our community. I would like to mention one project that's not on the list that I just want to have clarification on, and it's community services, and it's the rec complex. And I'm just, I guess it's something that we maybe will see in quarterly reports. I'm expecting maybe it'll be on the April report. And I guess as Jane, I see she came on, and Mr. Mayor, through you to Jane, and I guess, Jane, are we getting closer, from a Y negotiation? Would have been nice to see it on the list, but you're probably just not quite ready to put it on the list, I guess. So when will we receive something from council?
Thank you for your question, and to you, Mr. Mayor. We wanted to identify our top 5 major projects that we're looking at 2021. It is definitely a major project that we are on the cusp of venturing into. It will be more enhanced in 2022, and at the end of 2021, you'll start to see my face more regularly as we start to talk about the YMCA moving forward with the partnership agreement, and then moving forward in 2022 with drawings. So it's not under the carpet by any means, but I wanted to show you through the CAO what our key initiatives are for 2021. And although it is on the cusp, it isn't one that we will be coming to council to and until late fall.
So, okay, I was going to push a little bit on that. They just threw in the last words, late fall. So I thought maybe we'd see something in March, April, May, but you're saying that we will not see something to do with the indoor rec complex Y negotiations for another 9 months. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so as a department, we've strategically put into place what we are able to do with our resources that we have. We want to continue to move the YMCA, and we want to continue to bring the partnership agreement to council. I met with Gail Graham even as recently as today, and we're still working towards having a comprehensive agreement that both sides are happy with that we'll present to council for your approval.
Well, just so I'm absolutely clear, the partnership agreement, you're saying probably will not get to council till October, November.
It will not be to council until the end of the Q4. You can anticipate seeing something prior to budget presentations.
Okay.
Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Councillor Maya.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Kara, I echo what Vice Deputy Mayor says, that this is a good synopsis, and it gives us all a good optic of what it is going on in our busy municipality. My one question is, it's not I hope it doesn't come across as a criticism, but with regards to the police service report, there are the five initiatives that are going on, and certainly they are going on. They're on my radar, and we're aware of all of those. It's just that normally it's a bit of a paradigm shift for us to see police matters reported on a town council initiatives. Normally, they would, if there were those things that need to be reported, they'd be done through the minutes of the Police Services Board, just to maintain that arm's length. And I do realize that the new chief, Kevin Zettel, is now a regularly attending member of your SMT, and that is a good thing. I think the more we work together as a team is for you guys, it's going to be a good synergy. But can you just comment on why you felt the need to have those police-related matters put into the general municipal overview?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I think one of the first things that Chief Zettel and myself have worked towards is a good working relationship between the town and the police services. And to that end, when, as you mentioned, he's regularly attending our senior management team meetings, and when we started discussing the opportunity to bring forward major initiatives with a goal of creating awareness, he felt that it was a good approach to link council in with some of the things that are happening under the police services. We are aware of the timing, and we've had a couple of conversations about that recognize that he does have the Police Services Board to report into, and that's his approval authority, and that items would go forward to that board before it would be brought forward to council. But we just thought it was important in the spirit of improving communications and keeping lines of communication open, that it be incorporated here as well. And the pieces that are in front of you are the pieces that were included in the 2021 budget that he presented on, and acknowledged that he was moving forward through the police services. So I hope that answers your question, as I said, in the spirit of just open communication and awareness.
No, and I appreciate, and I fully expected that was all it was. I didn't think there was any attempt to undermine that relationship between the board and council. It's just that when it gets put in a report like this, there could always be somebody on council who started to ask more specific questions about why we're doing this K9 project, or why we're doing this project, when normally those are held separately. Those discussions and decisions are held separately at the board. But yes, these are all public knowledge. If anybody reads the board minutes, you'd see all of these things discussed.
This is not really substantially different from a police services budget presentation, which would normally be made to council. For as long as I can recall, the chief would show up and read off to council the major initiatives of the police service in a given year. That budget would have already been approved by the board, and it's really for council's information. But I think this is sort of along those lines. Obviously, council is not approving any of these items. But frankly, it's not approving anything in this report today with receiving it. It's just it's information for council on what's going on, and the things that we need to approve will eventually come to us to be approved, and the things that we don't won't. So yeah. Are there further questions or comments with regard to the report? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, and through you. Firstly, I would just like to express my appreciation for this. Kara, you and I haven't had a chance to sit down yet, but when we do, you'll hear, and many around this table have heard me speak about metrics for the last 2 years. So I'm delighted to see this, and what I look forward to is this report progressing into what I believe will be a dashboard that you've committed to quarterly, but I suspect we'll see this more frequently, and even perhaps one day where there's, red, yellow, green indicators on a daily basis where the directors or the members of the senior management team are updating all of the projects to give us that sort of, at a high level, what can we expect, or where are we would know there was an issue before there was an issue. So I want to express my appreciation for your leadership on this initiative, and for all of the senior management team for coming together to produce this and keeping us all informed in 2021.
Thank you. Further comments? I think it's important to note it's a long list of stuff, and you have to overlay on it COVID-19, which is still going to be an issue for the whole administration for at least the first half of the year. So you have a lot going on across the organization. These are the major initiatives, but of course there's others too that are going along. Some of them are, and COVID-19, for example, is pretty major, not necessarily an initiative, but a major issue that we have to deal with. And so yeah, we have a busy organization, and I agree with the comment from the Vice Deputy Mayor that this is something we should get out there one way or the other to make sure the public can see it and can be aware of this list, with the caveat that these aren't the only things the municipality is working on. These are just the top 5 things in each department. But yeah, no, it's a good report. And I guess I'll just ask, does any member have any specific questions to protective services portion of this? Are there further questions about that part? I don't see any. So, all right. So that brings us to the end of that report, and and also to the end of the agenda. So we'll move on to announcements by members. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we stay in our lockdown, I just want to remind people to stay safe, keep your numbers low, and to all the students that are out there that have returned to school this week, remember, safety is in small numbers. Please don't be grouping up, and respect the distance.
Thank you. Vice Deputy Mayor.
I just wanted to say thank you to the amazing teachers we have out there in our community. I had the opportunity this last 3 weeks. Of course, my son and daughter-in-law both work, and so I had the opportunity to spend 3 weeks with my 2 grandchildren as they were being taught via over the computer, and sat beside them the whole time, and helped in between classes with assignments and so on and so forth. And boy, I tell you, it was a real eye opener. And my little grandson, who's 6 years old, sitting in there with 10 or 15 squirming little 6-year-olds and trying to get them to stay focused. That teacher, he just loves the teacher, and she just did a remarkable job, and the other teachers that came online for Jimmy, for phys ed and other sessions. But I just it was a real eye opener, and again, a real appreciation for what teachers go through over the course of a day. So it was just really a shout out to our teaching community and all those involved with education. Just a real big thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Schreider.
Just a quick, I think, acknowledgement and thank you to town staff, but also to Saugeen Rail Trail for the great grooming that's happening now. It's a new initiative, partnership, and I know that they have some volunteers that are grooming some of our trail systems. We're so fortunate to have them, and now they're just even more enhanced. So just thank you to them, and walking in both Port Elgin and Southampton. Just you see so many people out. That's essentially really one of the only things that we're able to do right now. And you see so many people, and spirits are up, and people are friendly, and people are smart and safe and responsible. So thank you for that. But definitely to the rail trail and the town staff for that coordination. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I would just like to take a moment to recognize the Port Elgin BIA, who has made the decision going forward in 2021 that they will bring back the farmers market, assuming COVID protocols can be met. This was missed this summer by many, and we're very much looking forward to producing the market perhaps even bigger and better with obvious restrictions in place. Looking forward to having that in downtown Port Elgin for 2021.
Great news. Thank you, Councillor Grace.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mayat.
Nothing for me either. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carr.
Nothing for me tonight either.
Oh man, easy. So we're breezing right through tonight. I'll make two comments. One, I attended the annual general meeting of the Saugeen Shores Chamber of Commerce last week, and appreciated the opportunity to hear what they've been working on, and I want to congratulate their board and wish them the best for the coming year. And certainly the town is keen to continue to have them as partners. And I also attended the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority annual general meeting last week as well. For this, I guess it was, no, yeah, it was late last week. I'm confused now. Late last week, and just wanted to express congratulations to the chair, Maureen Couture, who I've known well over the years and who will be an excellent chair for the SVCA, and to the new executive team there. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Committee of the Whole is adjourned. We'll reconvene at 1:15. I'll call to order this regular council meeting. And the second item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. I'll ask any member if you have one of those to declare. Seeing none, of course, you can do so anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments. We have no public meeting. So that moves us on to adoption of the minutes. And I have a resolution that council adopt the minutes of the council meeting of January 11, 2021, and note and file the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of January 11, 2021 as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Schreider, seconded by Matheson. Questions or comments to either of those sets of minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. All right, that moves us then on to report of municipal officers, and there's a striking committee report and a resolution that council appoint Salina Din to the Port Elgin BIA Board of Management. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Smith, seconded by Grace. Questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Smith. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll just comment, Selena had an opportunity to attend our last meeting to provide a delegation, and she's very excited to bring some new light and energy to an already energetic board, and we're excited to have her.
Yeah, we'll certainly congratulate her on the appointment and congratulate the board as well. So if there's nothing further, I'll ask all in favor. That is carried. All right, and that then moves us on to the confirmatory bylaw. And I have a resolution that bylaw 7, 2021, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read as first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 25th day of January, 2021. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Matheson, second by Carr. All in favor? That's carried. And finally, I have a resolution that this regular council meeting of January 25, 2021 hereby adjourns at 7:47 p.m. Mover and seconder. Smith, Schreider. All in favor? We stand adjourned. Have a good evening.